All right, ready to dive in. Today we're tackling self-sabotage, and our guide is Get Out of Your Own Way by Dr. Mark Goulston.
Over 20 years, he's helped people break free from these patterns as a psychiatrist. So we're in good hands.
Feels like having a therapist on call. But first, what even is self-defeating behavior?
Think of it like this. These behaviors, they often come from trying to cope, especially with tough situations rooted in childhood.
We all need love, approval, security.
Right, and when those needs aren't met, we create protection, even if it backfires later.
So it's a Band-Aid, feels good now, but maybe bigger problems later.
Exactly, that instant gratification trap. Relief now, but sabotages goals, relationships down the line.
Makes sense. Goulston covers a bunch of these, but let's hit a few, starting with, well, chasing a parent's love and approval. I mean, who hasn't been there?
Oh, it's so common, and it can stick with you way into adulthood. Goulston even tells this story. A rock star, fame, fortune, the whole deal. But still, he craved his dad's approval. Shows how deep these patterns run.
Which is where that be your own grandparent advice comes in, right?
Precisely. Sometimes you got to be the one to nurture yourself, give yourself that love and acceptance. You can validate and support yourself.
Really resonates, breaking free from needing that outside validation. Okay, another one. Always ending up with the wrong people. What's up with that?
Goulston. He describes two main types. Core of hate, folks, battling the world, and then core of hurt, always needing validation.
I see the pattern. Drawn to them because they reflect something in us, maybe the intensity of the hate or feeling needed by the hurt. But, man, draining.
Totally. We might think we can change them, but Goulston's point is recognize it early, save yourself the heartache.
So awareness of those red flags and then choosing healthier connections. Speaking of patterns, there's procrastination. Goulston himself even struggled with it.
He links it to deeper stuff. Loneliness, fear. Having someone to keep him accountable actually helped him overcome it.
So not always laziness, but feeling overwhelmed or not good enough. And having support can really make a difference.
Definitely. And another communication killer is expecting others to just know how we feel.
Oh, that mind-reading expectation. Recipe for frustration.
Empathy is crucial, Goulston says. Not just understanding, but really connecting with how the other person feels, even if they communicate differently. He gives this example, a couple, contrasting styles. Husband, all logic, wife, more emotionally expressive.
And they bridge the gap with analogies, right?
Yeah. Common ground, making feelings relatable, even if they don't speak your language. Another thing, waiting too late to address important stuff can lead to regret. Goulston has this sad story. A woman cuts off her mother, later regrets not reconciling before she passed away.
Time is precious, that's for sure. Pride, anger can get in the way of mending things. Okay, let's shift gears. Anger.
Goulston's point is, anger itself isn't bad, it's what we do with it. Convert anger to conviction. That's his phrase.
Marianne, the writer dealing with those sexist jokes at work, right?
Yes. Instead of letting anger control her, she channeled it, advocated for herself, addressed the situation head on.
Converted it into a powerful statement about respect, professionalism.
Exactly. Now, one many people struggle with, saying yes when you really want to scream no.
People-pleasing trap. Goulston talks about Becky and Ann, business partners. Their relationship tanked because one couldn't set boundaries. Classic example of how not speaking up breeds resentment, damages things. Finding the balance between being agreeable and standing up for yourself and holding people accountable when they break promises, that's another tough one.
Goulston's got some strategies for that, like the Columbo defense. You're curious, not accusatory.
Channeling your inner detective. Bringing it up without putting them on the defensive.
Exactly. Addressing the problem without things getting heated. Trying to make up while still angry, that's another trap. Goulston himself fell into it in his own marriage.
Tried to reconcile before dealing with his anger and it backfired.
Shows that real reconciliation needs honesty, being vulnerable. Can't sweep those feelings under the rug, you got to process them.
So make space for genuine expression. Let those feelings surface before you can truly move on. Another one, taking everything personally. That can really mess with you internally.
Goulston talks about Joanna, a businesswoman. Feedback hit her so personally she missed out on valuable insights.
Insecurities, they blind us to the bigger picture. Speaking of acting too needy, another way to push people away.
He separates needful, which is healthy, from needy, which can be too much. It's about finding that balance, being independent, but also knowing it's okay to rely on others sometimes.
Expressing those needs in a healthy way without being clingy or dependent. All right, next up, unrealistic expectations. Recipe for disappointment.
Goulston shares Maxine's story. Fixated on getting back with her ex, even though he'd clearly moved on.
Clinging to a fantasy, not accepting reality.
Right. Sometimes letting go of those expectations is the only way to find new happiness. Now, this one, trying to take care of everyone. So many of us struggle with this, especially caregivers. Can't pour from an empty cup, as they say. Got to prioritize our own well-being if we want to show up for others in a healthy way.
Balance, caring for others and for yourself. Boundaries, and knowing you can't be everything to everyone. Okay, here's a curveball. Refusing to play games.
Not about being manipulative, but understanding those unspoken rules, socially, professionally.
Goulston brings up Beth, the salesperson, refused to play the game, ended up hurting her own career.
Sometimes you got to navigate those unwritten rules to reach your goals.
Balancing authenticity with adapting to the social landscape. Putting on an act to impress, that can really chip away at your confidence.
Carol's story pretended to be agreeable, non-demanding, just to impress men. Ended up feeling unseen, unappreciated. Being your true self, that's what matters.
Seeking genuine connections, not based on pretense. All right, envy, we all feel it. How do we keep it from turning toxic?
Goulston suggests, use it as fuel. Instead of dwelling on what you lack, ask, what can I learn? How can this inspire me?
Turning that negative energy into positive action. Not what you lack, but how it can inspire you. Now, self-pity, that can really drag you down.
Melinda, stuck after her divorce, right? Goulston suggests helping others, connecting with those who've been through similar stuff.
Shifting focus outward, finding purpose and connection through helping others. Interesting how these behaviors connect and overlap.
For sure. And often rooted in those deeper fears and insecurities.
Which brings us to this one. Assuming the hard way must be the right way.
Paul's story, thought coaching basketball was too easy, ended up hating his real job.
Sometimes the easier path is actually the more fulfilling one.
Now, apologies. Goulston says, I'm sorry, isn't always enough.
It's about actions, making things right, showing you really mean it.
Right. Words are hollow without action. Holding it all in, that can be really damaging to our well-being.
Gay, who couldn't talk about her son's accident, finding a safe space to express those feelings helped her heal.
Finding healthy ways to let those emotions out. Therapy, journaling, talking to someone you trust.
Bottling it up can be much worse in the long run. Another one, quitting too soon.
The entrepreneur, excited about new projects, but abandons them before they take off.
Persistence and patience are key for success.
Got to push through those initial bumps, give yourself a fair shot. Letting others control your life, that can leave you feeling powerless.
Fran, the people pleaser, felt like she was disappearing because she always put others first.
Reclaiming your power, making choices that align with what you value.
Exactly. Leaving too much to chance, that can create anxiety and missed opportunities.
The couple who didn't talk finances before marriage ended up constantly fighting about money.
Take control, make conscious choices. Don't just hope for the best.
Now, a big one that can really hold us back, fear running the show.
We've all been there. Stan, afraid to drive after that accident.
He regained his independence by facing that fear, step by step. Didn't erase it, worked through it.
Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it.
Right. Dealing with loss, it's important to grieve, but also find ways to move on, create new memories.
Marie, losing her daughter to murder, that's unimaginable.
But she found healing, meaning connecting with others who understood, channeling her grief into helping others.
Even in such profound loss, we can find joy, purpose again. Takes time, often needing support from those who get it.
And this one, not getting out when you should. It can keep us stuck in unhealthy situations.
The woman who stayed in that dead-end job hoping things would magically get better.
Sometimes you got to leave what's familiar to create space for something better.
Okay, not asking for what you need. That can breed resentment and missed opportunities.
Harriet and her friend, that miscommunication about the ride home turning into a huge fight because Harriet didn't speak up.
Be assertive, communicate your needs clearly. People aren't mind readers.
Right. And lastly, trying to fix others' feelings. Comes from a good place, but often unhelpful.
Goulston says, validate those feelings, let them experience them without judgment. Offer support, empathy, not trying to change how they feel. Exactly.
Wow, we've covered a lot. Amazing how these self-defeating behaviors pop up everywhere.
The powerful thing is, Goulston doesn't just point them out. He gives us a way to change. 5 steps to break these patterns.
Lay on me. What are they?
First, increase problem awareness. How is this hurting you? What are the negative consequences? That aha moment, seeing the pattern and that it's not helping.
Then decrease denial. No more excuses.
Taking responsibility for your part in it.
Right. Increased distress awareness. Feel those negative feelings that come with it. The guilt, shame, frustration.
Facing those uncomfortable emotions, not avoiding them.
Then decreased deterrent awareness. Challenge those fears. Anxiety's holding you back.
Like, I'm not letting them control me anymore.
Exactly. Finally, increase solution awareness. What good comes from changing? Envision the life you want.
Shifting focus from what you're losing to what you're gaining. What does freedom from this look like?
And Goulston emphasizes, you're not just giving something up, you're opening yourself up to new things.
Powerful stuff. Now I have a framework, not just what to change, but how.
And Goulston says, you don't have to go it alone. Having support through this makes a huge difference.
Therapist, support group, a good friend. That outside support system is invaluable.
Welcome back. Before we move on, I want to go back to something you mentioned, those deeper fears and insecurities behind a lot of this self-sabotage.
Yeah, like they're pulling the strings. And fear got to be a big one.
Absolutely. Goulston's got a whole chapter, letting fear run your life. Fear paralyzes us, keeps us stuck, stops us from going after what we want.
But he also says, courage isn't not feeling fear, it's acting even when you are afraid. Like Stan developed that fear of driving after the accident.
Totally immobilized, couldn't even think about getting behind the wheel, controlled his whole life.
And Goulston helped him overcome it, not by erasing the fear, but facing it little by little.
Small steps. First, just sitting in the car parked. Then driving on quiet streets. Then slowly working up to busier roads.
You don't have to conquer it all at once. Baby steps to freedom. Like, 1,000-mile journey starts with one step, right?
So true. And those first steps are often the hardest. Breaking it down makes it less scary.
And Goulston talks about reframing our thoughts, challenging those negative fear-based thoughts, replacing them with something positive, empowering.
Changing that internal dialogue, not I can't, but I'm learning or I'm willing to try.
Rewiring your brain for courage. Visualization can help too, right? Goulston talks about picturing yourself succeeding, like a mental rehearsal.
Using your imagination to build confidence, reduce anxiety, and studies show it actually works.
Not just some self-help gimmick, there's science behind it. But sometimes fear disguises itself as something else.
Oh yeah. Goulston points out it can look like procrastination, perfectionism, even anger.
Those are just symptoms masking a deeper fear we're not even aware of.
Hiding in plain sight. He says the key is to dig deeper. Find that root fear driving it all. Like a detective for your own mind.
Asking yourself, what am I really afraid of here? Then you can start dealing with it directly.
Bringing those fears out in the open. Okay, let's switch gears. Envy, another powerful emotion.
Everyone feels it, right? Wanting what someone else has, that can be intense.
But Goulston's take on envy is interesting. He says, don't let it consume you. Use it as fuel.
Instead of focusing on what you lack, ask, what can I learn from this person? How can this inspire me?
Shifting from comparison to inspiration, turning that negativity into positive action.
I like that. Taking back your power, using that energy to move forward. Now, grief, that's a tough one.
It's essential to grieve, feel the pain, but also find ways to move on, create new memories. He shows Marie's story, losing her daughter. It's
I can't even imagine.
unimaginable, but she found healing, meaning by connecting with others who'd been through similar loss, by helping others.
Even in such profound loss, finding joy, purpose again, takes time and support from those who understand.
Goulston also says create new memories, even where you've experienced loss, like after losing a spouse. Find ways to experience intimacy, connection again.
Honoring the past, but embracing the present, looking ahead.
Exactly. Balance between those two is key. Not erasing the past, but integrating it so you can move on.
Weaving those experiences, good and bad, into your life story. And everyone grieves differently. There's no set timeline.
No right or wrong way. It's personal. And grief can surprise you. Not always just sadness. Could be anger, anxiety, even physical stuff.
Be mindful of those signs. Find healthy ways to deal with those feelings. Okay, let's switch gears again. Not getting out when you should. Another one that keeps us stuck.
We get so used to discomfort, we stay way too long, like that woman in the dead-end job just hoping things would change.
Rarely happens. We get comfortable with what we know, even if it makes us miserable.
Better the devil you know. But Goulston says staying drains us, stops us from finding our passions.
You're surviving, not thriving. Recognizing when to walk away makes space for something better.
Sometimes the biggest risk is playing it safe. And that leads to not asking for what you need.
Hard for people who take care of others. Expressing your own needs can feel selfish.
But Goulston says it's actually strong to ask for help. We're not meant to do it all alone.
Harriet and her friend, that fight because of a misunderstanding about a ride, Harriet didn't speak up.
Expecting others to know what we need, that's just setting ourselves up for disappointment.
We gotta communicate clearly, directly.
And be okay with hearing no.
Respecting boundaries, knowing they have the right to say no. Now this one, trying to fix other people's feelings. A lot of us do it, especially caretakers.
Comes from a good place, but often backfires.
Goulston says, validate those feelings. Let them experience them without judgment.
Offer support, empathy. Don't try to change how they feel. Like, it's okay to be sad, I'm here for you.
Creating a safe space for them to feel those emotions without trying to fix it. And that reminds me of another barrier to connection, waiting to feel ready.
The ready trap. Putting things off, waiting for the perfect moment, that guarantee everything will be smooth sailing.
Which never comes, like waiting for all the lights to turn green before leaving the house.
And Goulston says that waiting can actually be procrastination, avoiding the discomfort of taking a leap.
He also says some anxiety is normal when we're pushing ourselves, growing.
It might even be a sign you're on the right track. Embrace the discomfort. It's part of the process.
Shifting from I'm not ready to I'm willing to learn and grow, even if it's uncomfortable.
We also tend to overestimate how bad failure will be. Those worst-case scenarios can paralyze us.
So challenge those thoughts. What's the real worst that could happen? Our thoughts shape our reality.
Break down big goals into smaller steps. It's less overwhelming. Focus on taking action one step at a time.
Building a bridge, brick by brick. Okay, we've talked individual behaviors, but what about the ones that specifically mess up our relationships?
Good point. Goulston covers those too, like always having to be right.
Oh yeah, everyone knows someone like that. Can't let an argument go, even when they're clearly wrong.
Tom's story, his need to be right cost him his marriage, his career.
Their ego is so fragile, can't stand being wrong.
It comes from insecurity, Goulston says. Covering up that fear by insisting they're right.
A defense mechanism protecting that ego.
But it pushes people away.
So what's the cure for always right syndrome?
Learning to listen, acknowledging different perspectives, being willing to admit you're wrong.
Not about winning, but understanding. Being wrong isn't weakness, it's a chance to learn and grow.
Another one, focusing on what your partner's doing wrong.
Most couples know that one. Fixating on the flaws, forgetting the good, like wearing negative filter glasses, only seeing the bad.
Ross and Nancy, they were both trying, but so focused on each other's faults they couldn't see the effort.
Stuck in that negativity loop.
Goulston says, shift your focus. What are they doing right? Express appreciation. Acknowledge those small acts of kindness.
Actively look for the good, be grateful for it, don't take it for granted.
And have regular check-ins, discuss progress, appreciate each other, build that open communication. Positive reinforcement.
Intentionally building that foundation of positivity, crucial for a healthy relationship. And speaking of foundations, trust. Breaking promises really hurts that.
Big time. Goulston says sometimes it's intentional, sometimes not. Maybe you don't want to disappoint or overestimate their ability to follow through.
Good intentions, but actions don't match the words.
But regardless, it erodes trust, creates conflict.
So how do you deal with broken promises? Both the person who broke it and the one who got let down.
Goulston has advice for both. Be realistic about what you can commit to, communicate clearly, and if you mess up, apologize, make things right.
Taking responsibility, making a real effort to repair the damage.
And for the person who was let down, express your disappointment, but not aggressively. Hold them accountable, but in a way that protects the relationship.
The Columbo defense. Right, curious, not accusatory. Help me understand what happened.
Give them the benefit of the doubt, but also be clear that actions have consequences.
Much better than going on the attack. Another tension creator, trying to make up while you're still angry.
That urge to smooth things over, but those feelings are still there. Goulston even did this with his wife.
It backfired, didn't it? Just pushed them further apart.
Genuine reconciliation takes honesty, vulnerability. Can't ignore those feelings, you got to deal with them. Journaling, therapy, talking it out.
Giving those feelings space so you can truly move on. Now taking everything personally.
Assuming it's all about you. Goulston tells Joanna's story, the businesswoman. Took feedback so personally, missed out on valuable insights.
So caught up in her own stuff, she couldn't see it objectively.
Goulston's got tips for breaking that pattern. Check your assumptions, consider other perspectives, separate your self-worth from others' opinions.
Not everything is about you. Ask yourself, is there another way to see this? Is it really about me or is something else going on with them?
And practice self-compassion. Treat yourself kindly, like you would a friend.
It's okay to feel hurt. Everyone makes mistakes. I'm not a bad person for feeling this way.
Giving yourself permission to be human. Okay, we covered a lot here. It's amazing how all these behaviors are linked, coming from those deeper fears.
Peeling back the layers, seeing those core patterns, and Goulston doesn't just point it out, he gives us ways to change.
Change is possible. Might not be easy, but with awareness, effort, and support, we can break free, create a better life. Which of these resonated with you the most? What are your thoughts?
Share your thoughts with us on social media or leave us a voicemail. We'll be back soon for the final part of our deep dive into Get Out of Your Own Way.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It's been quite the journey exploring self-sabotage with Get Out of Your Own Way by Dr. Goulston.
From hidden fears to those patterns that wreck our relationships, we've seen how these behaviors pop up everywhere.
Yeah, and how interconnected they are, often coming from those same fears and insecurities we might not even realize are there.
But Goulston doesn't just point fingers. He gives us the tools to break free, create a better life. That's what's so powerful. For me, self-compassion was huge. So easy to beat ourselves up, especially when we're struggling with these behaviors.
He reminds us, we're all a work in progress, right? It's okay to make mistakes. They can even be chances to learn if we approach them the right way.
Treat yourself like you would a friend. We all deserve compassion, even when we mess up.
That self-compassion can really stop the self-sabotage cycle, build a more positive relationship with ourselves.
Definitely. As we wrap up this deep dive, a few things really stuck with me. First, awareness is everything. Can't change what you don't see, right? Pay attention to your thoughts, feelings, behaviors. Notice those patterns that aren't helping.
Become an observer of your own mind. See those automatic reactions, habits that might be holding you back.
Another one, the power of reframing our thoughts. Don't get stuck in the negativity, challenge it. Replace it with something positive, something that empowers you.
We have the power to change that internal dialogue. We don't have to be victims of our own minds.
And taking action, that's huge. Easy to overthink, never actually do anything. But real change comes from getting out of our comfort zone, taking those steps, even baby steps.
Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting in spite of it. And those small steps, they add up.
And don't forget support. We don't have to go it alone. Therapist, support group, a friend, that outside support system can make all the difference.
We're all connected. We can draw strength from each other, especially those on a similar path.
So as we wrap up, what's one small step you can take today to start breaking free?
Change takes time. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate the small wins. Keep moving forward.
And that's a wrap on this deep dive into Get Out of Your Own Way. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll be back with another thought-provoking topic soon. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, keep living authentically.